Greetings everyone, it's Kevin Annett, Eagle Strong Voice. It's March 13th, 2021. Spring is almost upon us, and something you might have noticed is the little green buds that are blooming all over the place. This mysterious life force that brings everything back, regardless of the weather. In the middle of that emergence of the new life, sometimes there'll be a cold snap, and it's interesting, it doesn't kill off the green buds. It causes them to go into remission a bit, but the life remains and the green buds come forward and bring forth life again, regardless of the cold. And I was thinking about that, reflecting today out in the woods, and I realized our situation today as Republic citizens, as people who are reclaiming our nation and our identity and our own minds, we're a lot like those little buds. We're bringing forth new life, and yet suddenly a cold snap will hit. Repression, fear, falling out among each other, and the life continues nevertheless. And we have to keep that lesson from nature in mind all the time, because we operate according to natural law. The Republic of Canada is really a reestablishment of the indigenous law of nature, in which everyone is equal, everyone has liberty jointly, and we live in harmony with creation. That's the indigenous way of my people in Europe, of the native people here, and we're establishing that as a republic. So we look to nature all the time for wisdom, especially when we have disagreements and we're caught up in fear and conflict that often don't even come from us. Well, entire last year has been a massive trauma inflicted on all of us, and we inflict on ourselves as well. And so it seems that that cold weather might have chilled our prospects of new life, and yet in fact the opposite is true. Today, our numbers are greater than ever before in the Republic. We have hundreds of new people who have joined up, but they're scattered all over the place in small towns and communities across a vast area 5,000 miles wide. And so it's hard to get that sense of unity and nationhood. And I'm speaking right now from the west coast of Canada, which of course has been a hotspot in this whole struggle. It's been the center of the genocide for many decades, the ongoing genocide. And it's also been the place where our republic has sunk the best roots. Over half of the assemblies we formed in the republic have been based in British Columbia, so-called British Columbia. In response to a huge popular support now we're experiencing because of the blatant actions by the Trudeau government and allowing the Chinese to invade and take over the whole area. That's evoked an amazing support for us. And naturally, it's also caused a counterattack. Many of our assemblies here have been taken down. The attack's far worse here than anywhere else in the country. That's a sign of that we're on the right track. But throughout that all, we've retained a core leadership, people who have learned from these experiences and attacks and are determined to carry on regardless, and to maintain that core vision of a republic where people govern themselves, they pass and enforce their own laws. Now, as part of this, we want to announce today that this Monday, March 15th, we are establishing in Vancouver a new regional council for the republic on the west coast. That's going to solidify all of our cells and assemblies and citizens all over, quote, British Columbia, all over the west coast of Canada. Now that council is going to consist of delegates from all the local cells and assemblies, and it's going to be headed up by two conveners, myself, Kevin Annett, and Carl Redvers, who was formerly with the National Council back east. We're going to be launching new campaigns to let ourselves be known more to the public, to start new recruiting drives, citizenship schools, and training programs for our sheriffs and our cell conveners. And in that regard, I want to announce a number of important dates which you should keep in mind. March 20th, National Day of Action to end the lockdown. We're going to have rallies, reclamation actions, other direct actions to actually stop COVID measures. I know one of the things being planned in Vancouver is there's going to be a mass mask burning, where people are going to gather on the steps of the courthouse and other places and officially burn the muzzles and not put them on. Because this is spring, people. We all got to start breathing again naturally in every way. April 15th, Aboriginal Holocaust Memorial Day has been going on. We started it in Vancouver 16 years ago. It's what forced the truth of genocide to the surface. We've reclaimed one of the parks outside the Catholic Church in Vancouver and renamed it the William Coombs Memorial Park. We're going to be holding actions there, including a teach-in by yours truly on genocide past and present. and why we need the Republic to overcome this genocidal legacy and its continued attacks on us. May 1st and 2nd, that weekend, we're having a West Coast Leadership Training School for conveners and sheriffs. And most importantly, July 1st to 4th, it's the new date of our National Constitutional Convention of the Republic. Now, we plan to hold it in Vancouver with video feed across the entire country. And that'll be our National Constitutional Convention to establish the Constitution and the structure for our new governance of the Republic of Canada. Well, to move forward like this, we have to scrupulously be honest about our experience. And while we all believe in liberty in the abstract, and words are easy and cheap, the reality is we have learned in practice that many people, including those who pledge themselves as citizens, are not yet ready to take that risk and the requirement of liberty. They prefer instead to take out citizenship, but then assume kind of a passive wait-and-see attitude. And they resist the idea that we should be working together under a common discipline. There should be expectations from people, like paying dues and helping build a group. All of those things are, by many people, seen as some kind of intrusion into their life, even though they support the idea of the Republic. So it's very strange, because it's people are verbally committed, and yet they don't want to have to feel that they are answerable to someone other than themselves. Now, unfortunately, even more than the overt disruption that have been aimed at us by the state and their operatives that they send into our groups, that couldn't have an effect unless people were already predisposed to thinking that the demand to have a common commitment to something is some kind of dictatorship in their life. So in other words, we can often become our own worst enemies. Because, frankly, our original open-door policy that allowed anyone into the Republic, into our assemblies and cells, has created a great confusion, because it comes with mixing people of many different commitments and beliefs. Different levels of commitment means people can't find the common ground. The everyone for himself view of democracy is fine if you're a talk shop, but it prevents any kind of consistent action together by which we can learn the same lessons. And that's the power of a group discipline. Now, the popular idea of freedom that we have, the view of freedom in our culture, is simply freedom for oneself, freedom from restraint or obligations of any kind. But liberty for everyone means much more than that. It means establishing a national identity as a republic that ensures the liberties of all. But that can't happen unless our concern for the least of our people is equal to the concern for ourselves. So individualistic democracy is one-dimensional. It narrows our notion and practice of liberty, and it also creates an unequal balance of power. So for example, if you have in a group some people paying dues and others aren't, some making decisions and others not attending the meetings regularly, what that means is that a few people hold all the power, and they're looked to, and they have more experience and authority than the less involved citizens. So the irony is that unless people commit equally, it becomes less democratic, because a few people run things. And similarly, just look at the citizenship pledge. And people take this pledge and they don't even really understand what is meant by this. One of the sentences in the citizenship pledge is, I pledge to actively establish and defend the Republic, and to stand in solidarity with and defend all those who take this pledge. Actively establish and stand together with others and defend them. Well, that means that we all have to pay for the group. We all have to work together to build it up and recruit others. We all have to attend its meetings and events. Now, of course, if you've got reasons for why you can't, no one's going to force people to do these things. But if you don't do them, we don't have a nation. For how can we build that nation if in the early stages right now, we're not all committing to working together and having each other's backs? How can we build a future nation if we can't do those minimal things? And another factor here is that in terms of our relation to Indigenous nations, let me quote one of our National Council members, Dennis Jourdain. He's a Métis Ojibwe man from Manitoba. He said, we'll only trust white people if they're willing to risk and struggle like we do every day. So in other words, liberty has to be earned. Trust has to be earned. It isn't given automatically in a citizenship card. So we have to tighten things up. And so as of this Monday, March 15th, when we open the West Coast Council, there's a few basic policies we're going to follow. First of all, when you apply for citizenship, you're on probation for 30 days. You have to show in practice that you're willing to come to the meetings and events, take responsibility, learn how to recruit and educate people, take that effort all the time and fund the group with your dues to be established by your local group, and also your money stays in your group. No one's stealing it from you, right? If you go through that 30-day probation and it works out, then you can have full citizenship, and you can be and have your citizenship card. You're a confirmed citizen. And similarly, if you get that and then fall away, if you don't attend things for a month or two, we have the right to simply say, well, you're not really an active citizen anymore, and you can't be involved, you can't vote, you can't make amendments, that kind of thing. So third thing is, you have to, once you become a citizen, there's a mandatory day-long citizenship school you need to attend, so you know what you're joining, so you have the basic principles. Next, about the forming the assembly, it's got to come because cell groups come together to form the assembly. Cell groups that have worked together already. Now that's maybe common sense. That's been our mistake in the past. You just now announce an assembly without people knowing each other, it tends to fall apart quick. So we need to get cell groups that have worked together, that have followed these policies, have a common experience and discipline, and then they can at some point form an assembly. They're issued a charter, they establish their own bylaws. That's just, like I say, common sense, balancing personal liberty with mutual obligation to one another. That's essential. And we know in theory that sounds fine. In practice, it's a harder thing to do. But we can't let these conflicts and misunderstandings stop us. And it won't stop those of us who are committed to the general vision and the long-term goal of reclaiming our nation, creating a new nation based on sovereignty for all people. Like I mentioned earlier, the Republic of Canada represents a return to the natural law of every Indigenous nation, in which the primary concern is the equality and well-being of all people and their harmony with creation. This new way cannot help but conflict with the individualistic narcissism of our culture in the present age in which you're being raised. We have to unlearn that narcissistic programming. And we're doing so in a condition of complete trauma, so we need to withdraw from the influences around us, find our inner center, but understand that in that inner center there's the collectivity of we, the sovereign nation of Canada. We can only overcome that narcissistic individual selfishness and its programming in practice, in the course of working together. And so I say to people, yeah, it doesn't matter what differences you have, or if you're upset with somebody, let it lie for a few days and then come back together, because nothing is ever built unless you do it together. I remember that William Coombs, before he was murdered, he couldn't go into a Catholic church because it made him sick. But the day we occupied Holy Rosary Cathedral in 2007 and forced out the truth finally about genocide in Canada, he was there with us. And when I asked him how he overcame his fear, he said, I didn't want to let you guys down. I need to be there. We together overcame that fear in him. It wasn't going to a counselor or doing individual meditation. We did it together. Our energy together was so powerful. And we find that powerful energy when even a few of us stand together. We experienced that recently when we marched on the hospital. Even 10 of us doing it had great power. We felt that whole building of St. Paul's Hospital shake when we stood there. The place he had been murdered, the church that had murdered him, the Catholic Church. We count coup and overcome their energy whenever we stand together and overcome that individual selfishness where we all want to just worry about ourselves and what might happen to us. We need to overcome that in practice together. We know that numbers alone never win anything. Even if 5 of us are establishing a firm foundation, great things will come out of that. And those 5 are more important than 50 people where they build on sand, where they don't have a common commitment. So let's start with a few of us who are able to do that and build out from there. What matters now is that we build a foundation of a future nation by establishing that core leadership across the country that can survive the ups and downs of all of our struggles over many years and retain our collective will to victory. Well, the challenges and conflicts we've experienced recently in our republic will seem like child's play in comparison to what is to come as we engage our adversary on many fronts. What matters now is that we never give up our vision, our goals, and our work together to bring about a new society independent of the tyrannical global corporatocracy. Time is our best teacher and the best ally. It eventually makes warriors and veterans of all of us. And as veterans and warriors, we can lead and train the next generations. But we only become that when we endure and we learn together. Well, we're honored on the West Coast to be helping to lead this battle. We know that all of the lessons learned now as a united West Coast Council for the Republic will be shared equally across the nations. They will be a benefit to all of the citizens of our great republic now and in the years to come. This is Kevin Annett, Eagle Strong Voice. Write to us, Canada West Coast at protonmail.com, republicofcanada.ca. Stay strong, stay clear, and carry it on.